people, welcome back to the YouTube channel. You already know what time it is. It's time for another episode. You know, it's been a while when I don't add us into the actual show. Do you know what I'm saying? That's how you know it's been a while, but it's been a minute. Do you know what I mean? I didn't upload yesterday, so I thought we'd come back with a banger. And I'm looking forward to this one because we all need this insight. We all need to have this discussion about a couple of Leeds players. Who knew the team that almost went down and now they've stayed up. Everybody's trying to rob them and take their players from them. It's just madness. Let's get into it. But before we do, let's talk. Conor, welcome back to the channel, bro. It's not your first time on here, but it's a pleasure having you on. How are you, first of all?
Yeah, all good, mate. I was saying this the other day. I mean, I was on an Arsenal podcast, believe it or not. I've let you know already about Raphinha. It seems everybody in London wants to know about Raphinha. So, yeah, it's good, man. I'm not used to this weather, though. It's not nice. I mean, I don't know how you're feeling about it, but I can't sleep. It's just too hot. And then you wake up early. It's just grim, mate. So, yeah, I'm waiting for this to just die down. And we need to get back to that just standard, drizzly English weather. But then we complain, don't we, Matisse? So, can't have it both ways.
Exactly. We can't have it both ways. But there is a stench in the air. It's very humid where I am right now. It's not nice. But listen, people. It's true. Raphinha is the talk of the town. Whether you can spell his name correctly is another question, but he is the talk of the town. I've finally mastered the spelling. It ain't easy. But this is a player that is now available. He was kind of always becoming available towards the end of the season. If Leeds has got relegated, a lot of people would have been up in arms for the price tag of a 25 million, I think, release clause. Barcelona, we've seen Bayern Munich at some points as well, looking at this player. And now it seems like everybody in London is fighting over him. We're all fighting over the same attackers. Like, it's either Sterling, Gabriel Jesus, Raphinha, or Richarlison. Like, it's just, and three of them are Brazilian. It's just a straight fight. But let's get into Raphinha first of all. Maybe we'll touch on Calvin Phillips as well later on. But Raphinha, obviously a big player for you guys. I was watching, especially towards the end of the season, your team, because obviously the relegation battle was hotting up. All your games were becoming live. Against Arsenal, you kind of shot yourselves in the foot with the red card. I didn't think he had the greatest day out. But then on the final day, I watched that, and that was obviously revelation. I think, did he get a goal in that game? He kind of like resurrected and just, put in the Raphinha type performance that we were looking for. And I was always starting to worry. I was like, is he going to actually pull it out of the bag in a relegation battle? Is he that type of player when he knows his release clause is going to drop? He knows he's leaving probably anyway in the summer if you do get relegated. So the motivation issues, I think that was always something that everybody was going to look out for and really look at the player and be like, what are you really about when the chips are down? And he did stand up on the final day. So how would you judge his end of the season, I guess, when it was crunch time?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, Matisse, there was a lot of questions with regards to him. In the start of the season, he was on fire. And, I mean, his chance creation, I think his numbers are around 155 chances created this season. He's not had a striker to work with. We've been playing Dan James up front all season. Patrick Bamford has started 5 games. So Leeds have been crucified when it comes to injuries, and the quality is just not there, Matisse. The caliber of player isn't there. Leeds have ambition of being in the top 8. That is the long-term ambition. The top 6, we're trying to look at maybe a Leicester model, which probably adds to what we're saying here. Leicester sold on Kante, Mahrez, Harry Maguire, and I believe Leeds are going to have to do that at some point to be able to really gain some real notoriety in this league and bring some serious players in. But overall, when it comes to Raphinha, he's kept us up. And Leeds fans don't like hearing that because we all talk about a team goal and a team effort. And I do believe in that, but you have got to have that star boy quality. And listen, I don't ban this around a lot. I don't. But world class is something I would attribute to this guy. And it's not just because of his time at Leeds. It's because of when you look at the Brazil setup. He's playing for Leeds United who are fighting against relegation, and he's surrounded by players at Brazil, top offensive players who are applying their trade at top sides. And Raphinha's getting ahead of them on that right-hand side, and he's producing already. All the clubs, as you've said, have made contact with Leeds. We've had several alleged sort of inquiries from Bayern Munich, PSG, Real Madrid, Barcelona. So, this guy really is at the top of the tree. And I think what he's proven already, Matisse, this season is he can do it at the other end of the table as well. So imagine if there's better quality players in and around him. Now, there were Leeds fans who were a little bit worried about his consistency towards the back end of the season. But when you are getting hammered with injuries like we were, when you get no returns, Calvin Phillips, Patrick Bamford, the spine of your team is out for the majority of the season. You are looking at Raphinha to provide everything and more, really. And that's exactly what he did. To get 11 goals from that wide right position this season, matching Bukayo Saka, beating many of the top offensive players in this division for that Leeds United side. it's very underrated, Matisse, because he's not in the top 6. He's not in the top 4. People don't look at him like that because he's playing for Leeds United. But if he was in the top 4, if he was in the top 6, as I've just said several times, surrounded by better players, and a striker, I can't imagine this guy's numbers.
Yeah, I think it's what's going to be interesting about Raphinha is systematically. I've seen a mad report that came out, and I'm not sure how credible, but they said that Thomas Tuchel was looking. Actually, it was quite credible. It was from Martin Oinstein, and he was saying that Thomas Tuchel was looking to play him at right wing back potentially, which absolutely shattered me and shattered most of the Chelsea fan base to hear that Thomas Tuchel was potentially looking at him for right wing back. Because when you have a player like this, that is a forward thinking player, why would you restrict him, restrain him, arrest him in this right wing back position? We've seen it so many times with our other wingers, Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi, they've all had to play there. So I pray to God, if he does end up coming to us,
Matisse, Jesse Marsh did it. Jesse Marsh did it this season. He put him right wing back, and we couldn't believe it. We put him right wing back for a couple of games this season, and that's another part of his game which is fantastic. He'll track back. He'll do that in those defensive yards because of Bielsa. To start for Marcelo Bielsa, it doesn't matter how good you are. You have to put those defensive defensive work in. So he's got that to his game now, which makes him even more attractive. But when he was playing in right wing back, we were all just like, what are you doing? We're in a relegation battle. Put him right wing. That is his position. So yeah, man, that would slaughter his attributes putting him there for the long term. And I think that's where Tottenham would have to play him, right? If they got Kulusevski up front, Son and Kane, like what on earth would they do with him? So
yeah, it's a good question actually. Yeah, where would they put him? I think that defensive contribution is important because we're definitely gonna always need that in our team as well, and that's something that Mason Mount's been credited with, playing on that right hand side of the front three as well. And like you said, in a Bielsa team, your work rate has to be ridiculous. What would you say is? I saw he played one game on the left this season. Not that would be where you would advocate probably putting him. He's definitely a player that cuts in on the left foot from the right. What would you say is his biggest strength and his biggest weakness to move to one of these top clubs? Because obviously doing it at Leeds, when you're the main man, maybe you see more of the ball, the traffic is your way, you have that responsibility. If he was to say get less touches, get less volume of the ball, be more part of a team cohesive unit where he's going to have to maybe do more. Yes, he's going to have more, the overall team's going to have more of the ball, but we may necessarily not always go down to his side. What do you think his adaptation will look like there in terms of strengths and weaknesses?
I think sometimes his football IQ, as we know, there's a huge difference between the top 4 and even the top 6. Those 2 or 3 sides who comprise of 5th down to sort of 7th. I think the football IQ for those top 4 sides is very underrated, and that comprises decision making, focus, concentration, of course. But I think with Raphinha, the big plus side is his attitude. His attitude is phenomenal. It's when the chips are down, he'll face adversity, and in tricky situations, he will go and get that ball and he will make things happen. His passing accuracy is very, very decent. What I would say is his weakness is sometimes it's his he takes it on himself sometimes to do absolutely everything. And I think that's going to take quite a lot of adapting at a top side because, there are players in and around him who can do those things. So yeah, I think sometimes that is probably his biggest weakness in terms of I will do everything, and that's been a criticism from him for the Brazil national team as well. Sometimes it's I will do it all by myself. I need to do it all by myself. But at the same time, it's difficult to criticize him for that, Matisse, because in a lot of instances this season he's had to do that. So I know a lot of Leeds fans get a little bit frustrated with him when he's trying to sometimes he overcomplicates things when the simple ball is on, because he almost wants to do that sort of exhilarating pass and that exhilarating shot when he doesn't need to. So there are a few positives and a few weaknesses there really, but I think the main transitional thing will be just his attitude. He's got a world-class attitude, which I think would fit into any top 4, any title challenging side, to be quite honest with you. And he's willing to learn, and he showed that under Bielsa.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to hear, because I think the main issue, we'll go through the different teams and maybe who he suits more. One of our biggest issues, I guess, at Chelsea has been creativity. I think goals-wise, we've seen from Raphinha, he can definitely finish. And like I said, 11 goals in a team that haven't really, he's been the only guy that really creates, isn't it? I think he's been the one guy that you've leaned on for creation, and then on top of that, goals because of the injuries. And the balance on the left-hand side, whether it be Dan James. I'm not a massive fan of Dan James. I think he's a good workhorse. He's obviously a willing runner, but when it comes to quality and creativity and that extra level, he's hardly going to take the pressure off of Raphinha. If anything, Raphinha will get doubled up on. So But in terms of creativity, would you say that Raphinha's got a wide range skill set to offer in terms of if you're coming up against a low block and it's not, you know, maybe so much of a counter attack or a situation where you're in transition, which you may find more at Leeds because you are quite end to end. I know under Bielsa it was just like cage football, which is like back and forth. Has he got a variety in his passing range and his crossing, etc., where he can unlock the door in tight spaces? Do you think?
Yeah, I think the worst part of it is sometimes the dead ball from a corner. You know, from corners he can be quite weak, and that's probably somewhere where he needs to improve. But overall, his one-on-one ability, Matisse, and he's just the X factor of being able to get out of stupidly tight situations is exceptional. His first touch is extremely good as well. So when it comes to high pressured situations, maybe when there is a low block and a defender's going out to meet him, his first touch essentially gives him an extra yard or two, which brings other players into the game, really. So yeah, I think going up against the low block, that won't be a problem for him. I don't think that's ever been a problem for him as well, because when he's in the penalty area, defenders won't go near him because, you know, his feet, his balance is incredible. He can go both ways, and, you know, he will go down if he needs to. So I think he's won us something like 4 or 5 penalties this season and scored them all as well. So yeah, he's phenomenal when it comes to that. So I think when you're going up against a low block, that is fantastic. I think the main issue with Chelsea is probably going to be who you've got up front, because that's been obviously our big issue this season. We've not had a striker. He's created 155 chances by himself, which is, I mean, staggering numbers.
Yeah.
So it's just who you've got on the end of it. And I know Chelsea have got a lot of world-class players in and around. Maybe not. I don't know if you'd brand them as world class.
You wouldn't trust me.
Yeah. As soon as I said that, I was like, world class. But yeah, having a number 9 around him, Matisse, I mean, that productivity would be. I mean, I don't know how you defend against that, really. But yeah, I think in answer to your low block question, I don't think that would be a problem, because believe it or not, sometimes Leeds have faced that this season. Rarely, but sometimes we have faced that when we've come up against the bottom 3 sides, and he just has no problem in being able to manipulate the space at all. So that's a huge positive.
Yeah, I think obviously at Arsenal and Tottenham, I'd be surprised if Conte was to also try him at right wing back as well. I'd say that they'll go for right wing, and maybe it will be, you know, a fluid rotation with Kulusevski, or they'll, you know, 4 players for 3 positions is not bad when you're in multiple competitions. They'll have to rest players, etc. But when you look,
I think we were talking about Arsenal as well. I think there's a lot of reports, Matisse, that have said that Arsenal would be looking to change formation to fit him in, because I mean, they're talking about Bukayo Saka at right wing. I mean, I'll be straight up, man. I said this on an Arsenal podcast. Raphinha's a better player. He's a much better player, and they're talking about rotation with Bukayo Saka. It's just not going to happen.
Not going to happen. For you, he's a player that goes into one of these 3 teams and he's instantly a starter, and he's one of the main guys in the starting 11 for you, would you say?
I think so, Matisse. I mean, I mean, listen, obviously I'm a Leeds fan, and we've not had the greatest times, but even just when I've been going to see live football, it's really difficult to remember someone as talented as he is. And he's experienced as well, Matisse. We forget that, you know. On the Arsenal show I was on the other day, they were talking about Bukayo Saka, they were talking about Martinelli. Raphinha's 26 this year. You know, those guys are 19, 20, which is a huge factor. You know, he's played in a lot of these big games. He was playing in a lot of these big games in France for Rennes as well. So, yeah, I think, and Sporting Lisbon, of course. So I think he's more than ready at the minute. I mean, we were all thinking that he was going to be going to Bayern Munich and be that sort of starter on the right hand side as well, and those assurances these are what he needs, Matisse, because he will not move unless he is starting week in, week out, because his ultimate goal is being in that Brazil starting lineup. You know, he cannot be dropped from that. That is his. I mean, he talks on interviews about the Brazil national team all the time, and he's playing week in, week out for Leeds. So why would he move to a Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham when he hasn't got assurances like he would at Barcelona or Bayern? I know Bayern's not a thing anymore, but like he would have done at those clubs where he has assurances of starting week in, week out. You might as well just stay at Leeds, and then maybe offers are going to come in January when potentially Arsenal are struggling, which we've seen before. Maybe then big bids come in January for him and things like that, or maybe Chelsea do that. I doubt it. I doubt Chelsea will be doing that, but Arsenal are a bit of a panic buy club, so yeah, it wouldn't be the worst move from Leeds if we could keep him.
We know that you guys obviously predominantly will play the 4 and he'll play out on the right wing. For Chelsea, we play with these narrow 10s, and they're quite tucked in. They're not always given the license to go out wide. Sometimes it's the wing back that overloads. Sometimes they do pull out wide and the wing back inverts, but just on the basis that if he was to play in like a narrow 10 tucked in, even the 10 position itself, you know, if someone else was to vacate that position for him? Do you think he's a player that's positionally versatile to play in the 10, to play on the left, or for you, is he just an out and out right winger? Because the only thing I take issue with in modern day football, I remember when we had wingers, they used to be able to play both flanks. Iron Robin played left, he played right. Leroy Sané even played left, he played right. You know, Duff, he played left, he played right. We had so many wingers that could play on both flanks, and it feels like now these days everybody's got to be in that very strict position, strict zone, or they are not performing one bit. That's how we have it in our attack at the moment. So is he, would you say he's positionally versatile? Would you say that after what you've seen now, the part of, you know, where he is in his career with Brazil, like you said as well, he plays on the right for them. It's like, it's got to be right wing or nothing again, just for familiarity.
It's a great question. And I mean, if he was to stay with us, I've just mentioned to you off air, we're going to be playing a 4-2-2, which is a narrow system. He would have to be an attacking midfielder because essentially, Matisse, the system has to prevail over anything else, and that is what it is in modern day football. It never used to be like that, but it is now. So, yeah, the system is absolutely huge, and that's a really good question. I don't think you get the best out of him. I think hugging the touchline is where Raphinha is just unbelievable, where he can draw defenders out, and that's where he essentially beats them and does a lot of his productivity. But a lot of his goals do come from central as well, if you look at all the data maps and stuff like that. So that just shows that he can produce from those central areas. But I think he likes to get the ball out wide. And I think, I'll be honest with you, when we started with Jesse Marsch, when he implemented the narrow system straight away, he looked a little bit of a frustrated figure at points. And towards the back end of the season, we played Brighton and Brentford, where we got 4 points out of 6. And Raphinha, I think Jesse Marsch said at the end of the season, he just went, you know, we'll go out there, we'll play with the loose framework, try keep the ideals that I've told you, but go out there and just keep leads in the division. And for me, the last 2 games were where he really stood out, because it was almost like a roaming role where he could do whatever he wanted, really. And sort of the players stuck to the system a little bit, but it was almost give the ball to Raphinha. That is where I think that might be a problem for Raphinha in itself, Matisse. If he was to look at the Chelsea system and saw you play with narrow 10s, well, that's not going to utilize his best attributes. So I don't know then why he would do that. So that's an interesting question, mate. Is he positionally versatile? There's definitely potential there, but I haven't seen it in terms of the number 10 so much, because we've played with so much width, and the Jesse Marsch system hasn't really worked as of yet, playing narrow. So yeah, it's definitely up for debate, that one, mate. 100%.
It's a weird one, because that I've seen his heat map, and it is very touchline. Like, he really loves the touchline, like you said, and he'll maybe rip someone up, skin someone up over there, and then come inside and get involved after that. And like I said, my concern would be that if he was to start centrally, are we taking away from his biggest asset, which is obviously taking people out on the touchline and then doing his danger from over there, and then suffocating the player a little bit in crowded spaces? You said he's obviously very good in tight spaces. I've seen people compare him a little bit to Ziyech. I don't think he's like Ziyech in the fact that he's obviously a lot quicker, and he does go past players a lot more with his 1v1 ability. You would say that he's better at maybe going past players. I say Ziyech doesn't really go past players so much. He's not really that type of player. Makes sense, I guess, in a way, as to why people are looking at him at wing back, maybe just because you will then be definitely out there. But again, I know you said he's obviously got defensive contribution, but another issue is that if you overwork an attacker and make them contribute so high defensively in terms of just completely shuttling them back and forth, then when they get to the attacking third and it's time to think and it's time to concentrate and it's time to be precise, that's where their game could become weaker now, because they've just put in so many hard yards as a wing back, shuffling up and down. So that is a little bit of a cause for concern as well. Where would you say is the best move for him? Like, if you could pick any club right now, and maybe even continue to keep in Barcelona in there, because they are still sniffing about, where would you say is the best place for him to go systematically, team wise, you know, in terms of traits and what he's got to bring to the table?
I mean, obviously it depends on personnel, but I genuinely don't think Arsenal would be a bad move for him at all. You know, if they're maybe playing a 4-2-3-1, or if it's a 4-3-3, I'm not 100% sure, but I know they like to play with a little bit of width. They're not restricted to a central space. Like, you know, potentially maybe, you know, if you look at him at Spurs, like you've quite rightly said, there might be a little bit of rotation with Kulusevski. He's been absolutely excellent. Or they might use him in a defensive capacity and maybe look to, you know, double them up when they're going forward. I'm not 100% sure. Chelsea's a really difficult one. I've thought this before because of the system. Apparently he does favour Chelsea and Barcelona, but let's be right, Matisse, Deco is his agent. So is that
Yeah,
Raphinha or is that Deco?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's definitely a question. But I would say probably Arsenal, just because they utilise a lot more width, and I think that's clearly where Arteta's going. With regards to the productivity they've got going forward. So I think he'd slot in quite nicely there. Do I think that's going to happen? There is potential for it. There really is, but it just doesn't make sense for me in terms of the Saka thing. I just can't get my head around, unless he moved over to the left, but Saka isn't as productive out on the left, neither is Raphinha. So if they're willing to spend 70 million on that, fair play, but that is crazy to me. But Barcelona, obviously under Xavi as well, that's where he wants to move. But it looks like today, to be honest, Matisse, they're looking at Lewandowski, and they've got Otavio in their sort of sites as well. So I don't understand where they're going to get this money from. But system based, probably at the minute, Arsenal, and maybe secondary, maybe Barcelona. Yeah.
Yeah, and to back up what you said about statistics wise, I was seeing that he's one of the top 2 players with Mane since the 2021 season to have 100 shots plus, 100 chances created plus, and 100 plus take-ons completed as well. Only him and Mane. Which is ridiculous. How much money do you think it's going to cost to get him out of Leeds? Because we're seeing mad figures these days for attackers. We've seen Nunes move for crazy after one big season at Benfica, and Cuckoo, crazy amount of money as well. He was rumored for Leipzig. I think he just signed a new deal. And a host of others, that are probably going to be outpriced. Maybe potentially we've seen it with Wilfried Zaha before. So what would you say is the price that you guys are gonna fold on if you absolutely have to sell him?
I honestly think it's going to be 60 and above, mate. I really do. And I think we're going to hold out for it. He's our prized asset. He's our number one asset. And we got him for 18 million, which is an unbelievable bit of scouting. His profile has just gone through the roof now because of Leeds. So you want to make the most profit on your most sellable asset. So yeah, if there's a bidding war, Matisse, that's even better for it. It's better that Chelsea are potentially in for him. It's better that Spurs, Arsenal, I don't even think Barca are going to be able to afford it. But if you guys are all going hammer and tong for his signature, that's perfect for us, because it's only going to drive the price up. So we've already been lowballed by Arsenal. Apparently they offered below 40 million, which is quite funny. But in the modern day market, Matisse, it's wild at the minute. You've got Yves Bissouma going to Tottenham. I know he only had a year left on his contract, but for like below 35 million, it's crazy at the minute when you're looking at it. So I think from a fan's perspective, it'd be 65 million. But when you're looking at the current market and the economy of football now, and how you've still got top players going for a reduced value, maybe you could get him for 55 million.
That's going to be an interesting one, because money talks. Do you know what I mean? Money does talk, and I'm interested to see where he ends up, because I think he is a very good player. Whether he fits into our system, I think is definitely an issue, which is why I'm maybe not as excited about him as I would be if we maybe played a 4-3-3. I think if we played,
Matisse, if we played, I think that's what Barca play, right? I think Adama was on Adama and Ferran Torres on either side. Adama's going back to Wolves, isn't he? And he's just crap. He's just Dan James with the gym membership, isn't he? So, I think Raphinha there. You look at that productivity. If they've got Aubameyang up front, that'd be insane. So maybe actually Barca would be ahead because they play a really attacking 4-3-3. So that'd be a huge signing for them.
Yeah, it annoys me greatly that we don't play with out and out wingers going into next season. If we do stick with the 3 at the back, and we're looking at players like Raphinha, players like Dembele, and they are wingers, and we don't play with wingers, it really does annoy me quite greatly. Like, if we're going to play with inside 10s, buy inside 10s. Where it is. Also, just before we wrap up, where did you get Raphinha from, and how long has he been at the club? Because he kind of just, like, we didn't know about him before you guys had him, and he was ripping up the Premier League, and we're like, yo, what's going on here? Where'd this guy come from? Because I remember even the Brazilian national team coach, he was saying that even Raphinha surprised him a little bit in terms of like his burst onto the scene into this Brazil team. Now it's kind of come out of, obviously he's been doing it for a few years in the Premier League, but no one knew about him before you guys. Even Van Dijk at Southampton, I knew about him at Southampton, at Celtic before he got to Southampton. So where'd you get this guy from?
So he was originally at Sporting Lisbon. And I think he moved from it might be Vitória in Brazil, Sporting Lisbon for around about 5 million. And then I believe, he went from Sporting to Stade Rennes in 2019. So so his first move was 2018, then it was 2019, then it was 2020, and then it potentially looks like it's going to be 2022. So he has moved up the pecking order very quickly, which just shows, teams in and around just the continent or whatever, or the world are thinking, this guy's he's seriously good. So I think Rennes bought him for 7 million from Sporting Lisbon, and then Leeds got him from Rennes after one season. His numbers at Rennes were insane as well. And I think we got him from Rennes for it was about 17, 18 million. Matisse, I mean, he's played 9 times for Brazil, and I think he scored 5 goals and got 2 assists. 2 of those goals as well, by the way, were openers against Uruguay. Yeah. So, I mean, it just shows the transition, Matisse, to go from playing week in, week out in a completely different system to then stepping up and starting for Brazil, who, there's an argument there that they're going to win the World Cup, and playing 9 times and contributing so many, the goal contributions just through the roof, nearly in excess to the amount of games he's playing. Just shows that transitional aspect of even him getting to a top club, I think will be pretty seamless for him. I think he's that good.
There you go. Well, guys, listen, I've enjoyed this. I've really enjoyed this. It's now
Am I his agent or what?
Yeah, you are, and I'm even now pushing even more for this 4-3-3. I swear to God, at least as an option, I just need to see if we're going for wingers. We've been linked with Sterling, all these guys play wingers. Oh my days! But Conor, absolute pleasure having you on, man, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the comments think about this. It's going to attract all of the different London clubs there. They're going to be clamoring over this to see whether he fits into the system or not. But let them know where to find you. Absolute pleasure, bro.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Matisse. Come over to the One Leeds fan channel, guys, if you want to hear everything Raphinha. We've been talking about him a lot over there, and we do a daily show on not on Raphinha, but about Raphinha pretty much at the minute. So everything's about him. So head on over there if you want some additional detail. But yeah, Matisse, really appreciate it and keep up the good work, mate.
Absolute pleasure. And guys, make sure you smash up the icons. Listen, I was gonna get onto Calvin Phillips, but I didn't want to go any longer, and I wanted to stick on Raphinha because I feel like Calvin Phillips is kind of like you expect him to go to Man City, aren't you? Or are you still hoping to keep him as well?
Do you know what, mate? At the minute, if you were to offer me, someone said this to me the other day, who would you rather keep? It'd be 100% Raphinha, because I think system based, once again, Calvin is replaceable, and it's all about the system, isn't it, in football?
Oh, damn. Well, there you go. There's that's your little sneak peek to go over to Conor's channel. Do you know what I mean? I'm not even going to ask any more questions. So there you go. But listen, guys, make sure you smash up the icons. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll chat to you, man, in a bit. Big up your damn selves in a bit, people. Peace. Perfect.